Hey, welcome back to my table. My name is Daniel Stombaugh, and I'm just a guy who's identified how loved and adored I am by God. It's my passion and my purpose in life to help everyone I meet understand their place of value in the heart of God and to the kingdom of God. And so we're going through the Solomon Song. It's a 90-day journey of God's expressed desire for our heart, and we are on day number 17 today. And I'm super excited about today because it carries over from the last video that we had. We talked about the bride being at dinner with the king, and we talked about the description of being under the banner of love and what it meant to be under that covering. And as the bride is sitting at the table, as she is watching Solomon with precision direct and guide all the aspects of that fantastic dinner party, she watches him and the attention to detail, and as she sees his eyes, she watches his jaw muscles tighten as something doesn't go right. She watches people jump in fear of Solomon, and she watches him dispense commands without ever saying a word, just with eye contact alone. And as she sees that, something within her stirs. And it stirs because she realizes the same power and the same awe that people give towards Solomon and he receives that he will turn and give that same power and awe to her. He looks at her with every bit of intention to detail as he looks at the people in the business of the palace. He looks at her with great care and consideration, and for her, and we're going to find out more about her life, this is fantastic because this is healing a wound within her heart. This is someone who has been taken advantage of, abused as a girl. She's been someone who has been the leftover trash for everyone around her, and she has been left to clean up mess after mess after mess and bear the brunt and the blame for everyone else's life. And she has carried these wounds, and for someone to turn around and give her respect and authority and power and love, she didn't know what to do with that. The same way, when we come to God and find out there is nothing you can do to earn His favor, to earn His love, it's overwhelming, honestly. The day that you hear the message of grace for what it is, it can be a stumbling block of sorts. I mean, it can be a point where you stop and you just don't journey any further because you don't get it. We're afraid to accept it, to let our guard down, to say, you know what, there's nothing I can do that's going to change His mind. We look at God with so many of these questions, and our growth with God and that journey of life, that journey of grace to grace to grace, and that journey of salvation is us putting a different playlist in our mind that no longer says, I'm unworthy and I got to live up to all these extremes, but to understand I have been made worthy. I have been made righteous. I have been made clean. I am complete. There is nothing missing. Colossians says, you are complete in Him. And so we're going to see what this effect has on our Song of Solomon chapter number 2 and verse number 5. It's day number 17. Our title is What is Love for our devotional. And so she makes this statement after watching Solomon deal and interact. She says, stay with me, flagons. That's the wine. Comfort me with apples, for I'm sick of love. Now let me point out what she was not saying. She was not saying, I'm sick of love. I can't stand it. She wasn't saying she was tired of Solomon. She was sick of love. I'm sick and tired of being loved. She wasn't saying that. She was saying, I am lovesick. I look at Him, and everything about me just stirs when I look at God. When I look at when you look at the cross, you look at Calvary. Everything inside stirs and churns. It compels you. We don't avoid sin to be close to God. We avoid sin because we are close. And you look at it and say, oh man, I see what you've done for me. When I take the time to think about you and what you've done for me. Paul said in Galatians 2:20, for He loved me and He gave Himself for me. And the problem with most Christians is we just don't think. We don't take time to think. So in Psalms 1, where it says, blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, or stands in the way of sinners, or sits in the seat of scornful, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in His law doth he meditate. We are scared of the word meditate. We think it means we sit in the lotus position. all day long, and it's not. Meditate means to stop and to think and to consider and to ponder, and very few of us take the time to actually think, man. We get in the car and we turn the radio on, right? Or you turn your music on, or you put your headphones in, and away you go, and you talk to people at work all day long. You have music on your computer all day long if you work in an office, or if you're outside, you're talking to people all day long, and it's that constant noise. You ride home from work and you got the music on, you got your kids going on, you sit at home, you turn the TV on, and when it comes, the only time it's actually quiet is time when you fall asleep. And even then, a lot of people can't fall asleep without some sort of noise going on, because it's just quiet. I don't know how many times I'll talk to someone, they'll say, I can't stand quiet. And the reason why we don't like quiet is because when you get alone in the quiet and with no noise going on, all you have is the noise of your own thoughts. And for a lot of people, the noise of their own thoughts scares the fire out of them. It's like we're afraid to be quiet because ultimately we're afraid to think. But there is amazing power in taking the time to think. When she was thinking about him and how he directed that dinner, she thought about the intensity and how he communicated his love for her. He showed her a garden, man. He put jewels on her. He took her out in the garden. They made love. All this stuff. And she thought about how intense his desire was to express to her value to him. It wasn't some Rocky Balboa, proposal he gave her. Hey, AJ, how about marrying me? I mean, you will go look at tigers. We'll look at tigers. It wasn't one of those things. Like, he had considered, and he took great pain to show her all these little intricacies of his palace, because he wanted her to understand who she was now in him. He wanted her to understand who she was to him. And when you understand and think about God, the same feelings happen. It's an overwhelmed way of living. I heard a statement that says 90% of the world is asleep. And the 10% that is awake live their life in absolute and total amazement. And I believe it. Man, not being asleep, taking the time to think. Here's a little formula. It's simple, but it's powerful to living this life of overwhelmed. Living overwhelmed with God. The formula is simple. Ready? It goes like this. Thankfulness leads to thankfulness. Thankfulness leads to thankfulness. Thankfulness leads to praise. And praise always leads to action. Thankfulness leads to thankfulness. Thankfulness leads to praise. And praise always leads to action. This formula works with people just as much as it works with your relationship with God. Taking the time to think about people in your life. You can't think about them very long without being thankful for them. If you got kids, if you have teenagers, and they frustrate you to death, and you just think that there's no hope for that teenager, your heart will be softened when you take the time to think about them. When you think about them, you look at pictures of them when they were little, back when they loved you, back when they were still moldable and teachable, and you see those pictures of them and you're like, gosh, I really miss them, and I love this year with them, or I love this time of life when they were getting their teeth, or when they were learning how to walk, or all of that stuff, and while they were afraid of the dark, when they came in your room because they wet the bed and said stuff like, my bed is wet and I don't know what happened. All of those times when you look at them and you think about them, it's like you become very thankful for them. Like, man, I'm really glad that they're in my life. I'm glad that I was given the privilege of being their parent. I'm glad that I was given that relationship with them. I'm glad that I was given all of those nights and all those frustrating times as a kid. I'm glad I was given all the hide and seek games and all the Nerf battles and all the playing dolls and all of that stuff. And when you become thankful, and you become very happy. And when you become happy, you just start to praise them. And you know what? they're not a perfect kid and they mess up, but they're my kid and I love them and they always have a place with me in my heart. They're always going to be here. They're always going to be, it's always my son. That's always going to be my daughter. And they're always going to have me as their dad. And I will forever be grateful that I had the opportunity and I had the joy and the privilege of being their father. And you're going to think about that, man. You think about that, you become thankful. When you become thankful, you begin to praise them. When you praise them, man, praise always leads to action. Before you know it, man, you're already planning out in your mind what kind of snacks you're going to buy them when you go to the grocery store, because you want to just give them a can of Pringles. You want to give them their favorite candy. You want to have that. You want to throw it on their bed. You want to write them a note. You want to do these things with them. It's like, I want to give action. You know, if you're driving home from work and you think about your spouse, you become very thankful about them and what they mean and the things that they do for you and how they are for you, and you become very thankful for them. And when you're very thankful for that person, you find yourself speaking out about that, and you find yourself pulling into the florist or pulling into the donut shop or whatever it is that your spouse enjoys, and you find yourself grabbing that treat and you're excited to bring it home. It had nothing to do with anything other than the fact that I want to express to you that I'm overwhelmed with you. You know, overwhelmed way of living with God is not an accident. It doesn't just happen. It's something that you cultivate with God. You think about him, and you think about what it means to actually understand his heart for you. You think about the fact that he loved you knowing that you wouldn't love him back, and you think about all these things about Calvary. You think about him, and you become very thankful for God as your protector and your provider. And when you become thankful for him, you praise him. And praise always leads to action, always leads to a desire for a stronger relationship and desire for more in the relationships. And so I would have to ask you, when's the last time that you were overwhelmed by God? Overwhelmed. And I challenge you to be thankful today. Think about him. And let that lead you to thankfulness. Let thankfulness lead you to praise, and let praise lead you to action. So that's my challenge for you today and my question. Now, the next time we get together, we're going to talk in the next video about what happened when she got overwhelmed. Because she looked at him and she said, I want to do more than just think about you. I want to do more than just think about times we had. I'm ready for you right now. Now remember, the king sat high above an alcove and very limited visibility by people in the banqueting hall. And they were reclined behind that table and they had a great deal of privacy. And she just said, look, I want you. And I want to have you. And so next time we get together, it's graphic. It's extremely graphic. I'm going to warn you, the melody is like through the roof. The sexual content is through the roof. But there's a beautiful picture inside that sexual content that you got to see. I cannot wait for next episode. I love it. I love this dynamic of relationship. Thankfulness leading to thankfulness. Thankfulness leads to praise. And praise leads to action, where she looked at him, looked at her king, and said, I want to experience more of you. And when you become thankful of God, you become thankful. Thankfully begin to praise him, when praise is going to lead you to the desire to see God move in your life. I want to see you move in my life. I want more in my relationship with you than just a 9 to 5 at church. I punch in and punch out, do my time card. I say my memorized prayer. I read my one chapter a day just to check off the box and say I'm a good child of God. No, you're going to say, I want to see you active in my life because I want more memories with you than it just passed. I don't want the best days of my life with you to be spent when I was a teenager. I was so close to God when I was a teenager. I felt God move in my life as a teenager, but that was back then. No, I want it now. Like, I want more of that. I want it all the time. And so you're going to see yourself with a similar desire for God to move in your life. And we're going to see that pictured out in the next time we get together. So I can't wait for that. Thank you so much. Hope you have a fantastic day today, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye now.